because I'm not the best organizer. I have like notes everywhere, scribbled all over things. Like you were at my house last night. There was a principles of goalkeeping on a napkin. Okay. Like, and so I think organizing our thoughts and being very clear about our objectives. When there is clarity around what you expect from the goalkeeper, both in their behaviors, like their postures, their moods, the way they communicate and treat each other, but when you're organized about what you expect from them, I think it breeds more competence, and the competence breeds confidence. And when you're confident, you're courageous. And then it kind of goes back to the beginning of the cycle of trying new things, hard things, and being more competent at them, getting more confidence in them, right? So the more organized we are with our thoughts, the way we do things, our philosophies, I think the better off we are. That's always my first question when a lot of coaches will call and be like, hey, I've got this question on blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, what's your philosophy on coaching? Like, how do you do it? Because everything will lead back to what are you trying to help develop and how do you do that? And the more organized we are in our thoughts, the more clear we are. I think ultimately, even if our method doesn't work, we can go back to it and say, this is the thing I'm going to change. This is the way we have been doing it. And we can alter it to see, like trial and error, to see if it works or not.
Yeah. And I think that like at the end of the day too, I come back to even just our 1v1 philosophy. It's evolved over time, but because we have this framework and because it's organized, not only is it easier for us to teach, but I think it's easier for our goalkeepers to learn. And like that is the picture of organization for me, because when you can categorize and when you can make sense of things, and it's not to say that everything neatly fits in its own box, but it at least gives you structure and framework to be able to have conversation. And once goalkeepers learn our verbiage and like our philosophy on it, I feel that they start to get a better understanding of like how to handle these situations that can be quite complex, and then figure out like which part of it do they kind of lean towards. And it just helps organize conversation in general.
Well, I think it gives us a framework, right? A structure that's not rules and it's not regimented, but it allows us to be more prepared without being planned, right? It's not, it has to be this way. It is principle based, where it's like, if you can impact the ball, here are some different ways you could solve that. If you can't impact the ball, maybe find a position where you can protect the goal or support the play based on whatever it is you see, right? And every goalkeeper, that's true for every goalkeeper. What's not true for every goalkeeper is that you have to go there, is that you must put pressure, is that you must close down, right? Because we all have different skill sets. We all have different capacities individually, whether we're fast or tall or smart or really quick and agile, all those things. And having a framework and a structure allows for goalkeepers to understand those things about themselves. And also understand, it simplifies some of the decision-making processes, or at least for coaches, maybe those are principles that you don't even share with the goalkeepers, but that's how you design your session. And you design your session based off of those principles. And I'm going to set these principles up for today. And I want to see how they adapt to those ever evolving contexts of these types of situations. But yeah, I think the more organized you are, the more clarity people have. And then like you had brilliant example of the 1v1 is that we have changed that, and it's been evolving over the course of the last few years, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve. But right now it brings a simplicity, because whenever I say phase 2, everyone knows what that means. I don't have to go into strong, lengthy detail about what the situation is. We all know it's a shared language. We're moving on to the next thing, and it's a quick thing. Now we can maximize some of the time that we have.
Yeah. And
all right, last
one
one. Okay, go ahead.
The fact that it can span across different levels and age ranges, I think, is huge too, and speaks volumes. Like having organization breeds clarity, breeds competence, and it does so in a way where it doesn't matter if you're teaching someone who's brand new or someone that's a pro.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. And basically, what'd you say?
If you're not organized, you can't do that.
Right. And then you basically have the ability to advance that understanding for each person and in each individual or each skill level, or you can figure out, okay, obviously someone who is a beginner, they might not completely understand it, but at least I'm painting those pictures for them and they're starting to grasp. And, we'll go into even more detail about the height at which you close or something when you have a better understanding of when to use these things, or you can go into more detail as someone becomes more knowledgeable in the environment.
Right.
All right, last one. This is probably my favorite one. And I'm not going to say most important because I feel like they're all really, really, really important. But the role and
you're excited for.
Yeah, the role and the skill of being a communicator. Ooh, I feel like being a coach should be synonymous with a good communicator. Like, not only we just talk about the organization, like how do you articulate those objectives? How do you communicate to different skill levels, right? I can have a really in-depth conversation with Kaylin Sheridan that I'm not going to have with a young person. How do I communicate to that newer person to the position, right? How do I communicate when you're a coach of a team and you have to make this really hard decisions about who's 1, 2, and 3? How do you communicate when you're seeing behaviors that don't align with your core values? How do you transparently tell someone the decisions that you're making while also simultaneously inspiring them to go out and take space on some of their areas for improvement? How transparent are you, or do you hide behind someone else's decision, right? So I think communication is one of the most underrated aspects of our job, and something that I'm still working on every day. Because everybody has a different way of holding people accountable or being honest with people. And some days I get it right. And some days I'm like, man, I wish I could redo that conversation. And I think that's okay too, because we're all, even us as coaches who are in influential positions, we do make mistakes and we need to, ask for forgiveness and show ourselves grace sometimes too.
Yeah. It's such a relational job, and that's the hardest part about it, but it's also the most rewarding part about it. And I think that I've grown up so much because of that aspect of the job, like both at TKI and at St. Joe's. And obviously it's like a little bit different at both of them because I'm not having to choose someone to perform for our team at TKI, but I'm still having to be a really good communicator, both on the field for the goalkeepers that we work with, but also with you and Maria as my bosses, and being able to like communicate and manage like different needs and things about, that kind of employee environment, like employee relationship. And then obviously at St. Joe's, I'm goalkeeper coach and I have to stand by and pick the choice for our number one with our head coach. But also, like you said, I'm not going to just sit there and go by, oh, well, it's Jess's decision, because it's our decision. All three of the coaches make it together, and I'm going to give my input on why we made that, so that even sometimes when it's hard, because, anyone who's hearing they're not playing isn't going to like that they have a clear-cut message on, okay, here's why, here's how I can support you, and if you need anything, I'm right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do think that's probably one of the hardest parts, is being really transparent, but also not harsh and like shaming people for maybe not being as comfortable in some areas of the position as possible. But also when they leave that door, they're not like, oh, I'm mad at Coach Jill. It's, I feel more aware and more knowledgeable of some things that I need to do to be able to get to the level that I aspire to get to. And I think that's really then turns us back on us, is like, we have to recognize that improvement and be able to celebrate that improvement and find ways to reward that improvement. Because sometimes, like, someone could really improve. The number two could really improve in a certain area that you said, hey, you need to take some space here, but then they're still not going to play. And you still have to figure out a way to celebrate the work that they've done, to continue to keep them inspired, to continue to improve, but also, hey, recognize this, and maybe there are times that you can put them in the game and reward that behavior, but there are going to be times that you can't too, and you have to figure out different ways to keep them inspired, whether that's through, recognizing them in front of the team or putting them in certain roles, whatever that might be. Goes back to, figuring out how to just support athletes.
All comes back to support.
Yep. All right, Tor, you got a question?
I have a question for you. It's not.
Oh yeah, I have a quick question for you too.
You do?
Okay, yeah, mine isn't either. Yeah, I have a quick one.
Okay. Mine is, we got like just all the fun stuff coming up about the year. You got the holidays, you got the new year, you just roll into it. I want to know, what are you most looking forward to in the next few months?
That's a really good question. I think this December and January are always months where it's about togetherness, especially at TKI, right? Like, of course, with our families, the holiday season upon us, right? But at TKI specifically, this is a place where people flock to come back to, and they go off. I kind of think of myself as like this proud mom where all my babies go to college and then they come back during December and January. And I love it because we're here training some of the best goalkeepers in the country that just finished their senior year, that are preparing to go play for combines, that have been interns here, that have coached here. We've got pros coming in this next couple months, and it's very challenging, but it's also a really rewarding time to facilitate and develop those relationships, where goalkeepers know that they're really supported. And I think when I reflect back on my own playing journey and even my own coaching journey, the times when I felt the best were when I was with people collaborating and feeling really, really supported and seen. So this is a really fun time for us. What about you?
Love that, snaps. I'm excited to go back out to San Diego with everybody. That was so much fun last year, and it's the same kind of idea of like, we get a chance to collaborate with these really amazing goalkeepers that are also incredible people, and just having a chance to help them on their journey, but also just getting a chance to learn from them, because they're also very different as well.
Right.
And then just getting to be out
in that
fun. Community.
Yeah, it is fun.
Welcome to the Keeper Institute podcast. My name is Tori Corsaro. I'm a strength and conditioning and goalkeeper coach here at the Keeper Institute, and your host for today's show. The Keeper Institute is a unique goalkeeper training facility in New Jersey aimed at developing better goalkeepers and better people. On this podcast, we will be discussing all things goalkeeping, character development, and more.
Welcome back to another episode of the Keeper Institute podcast. I know we're always excited. We are. I get it. You hear this, we say it, but I'm excited because we have a special guest that we get to see a few times a year, and one of them is right now. We have Mollee Swift with us, former LSU goalkeeping standout, but currently in the Icelandic First Division with Próttur. And I am so pumped to have her on because she's going to share a little bit about her experience, what got her there, what's keeping her there, and what she's looking forward to in the future. Jill, tell us about Mollee Swift.
I'm pumped, Molly, because I already have my pen out and I'm ready to take notes, because I think you have a very unique experience, different than a lot of people at TKI in terms of your college decision, your transfer decision, deciding to go play in Iceland, but also just like your progression throughout your career, and how you got to this point. And I'm like so curious to know, is like, as a young person, did you have these dreams of playing professionally? Did you have aspirations to play at one of the most prestigious schools in the SEC, like ellipsis? So I'm very excited, because I think you have a unique pathway that a lot of people can really relate to. And it's great to have people on at all different stages at their career and in the professional game. So I think you have a lot of valuable insight, and you've overcome a lot of obstacles that I think are really relatable to our audience.
Thank you so much, guys.
Mal, before we get started, could you just share like where you grew up, maybe what club you played for, what division it was in, like a little bit of that kind of background?
Yeah, so I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska area. Played for a little bit smaller club. They don't exist anymore, but Gretna Soccer Club. And I was fortunate enough to be found by my coach and go to the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs through a college showcase. And then I went there for a year. My coach, Sean Hudson, ended up leaving, and I was blessed to be able to have a chance to kind of enter the transfer portal and take my opportunity to LSU, where I absolutely loved the 4 years that I had there. And yeah, so now I'm in Iceland. So it's kind of been a stretch from Nebraska to here, but no, I'm very fortunate and blessed along the way and how I've made it there. So yeah.
When did you become a goalkeeper?
Age of 12, I actually was at a club and they were needing a goalkeeper, and I was like, I'll throw my body in the goal. And so I was splitting time, didn't really think anything too much of it. And then I ended up going to my future club, Gretna Soccer Club, and I was like, you know what, I want to take this. I really like it. I like shot stopping. I like being in a different position, kind of a leader on the field. And so after that, I didn't really look back. I had a little bit of a spurt where I played left winger, scored a few goals for high school soccer team, and I think it helped me become a little bit more well-rounded. But yeah, age of 12, and I was like, yeah, I kind of like this sitting in the net.
Is there something that you can, like, an experience that you can recall that you were like, oh my gosh, I'm never leaving the goal again?
I had a moment in a state cup soccer match where I had to come out and head the ball away. And I just feel like it was a moment where I was like, oh, I can do more than just catch a ball with my hands. And I think that kind of showed me that I was really paying attention to the game. And I liked the position I was in, and I could read the ball really well. And I was like, oh, I think this is a future for me. I also had a older sister who was rocketing shots at me. So that was super fun to just be able to stop them. And I was like, oh, if I can save my sister's shots, then like I can save anything. So that was kind of a help in boosting confidence for sure.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I can remember the first time I was like, yeah, I'm never leaving the goal. And it was probably the first day I ever became a goalkeeper because I didn't have to run with everybody else at training, which was a mega plus. And also, my first game, we lost 6-0. And for some reason, I was like, I'm never leaving the goal. That was so much fun, even though we got rocked 6-0.
That's incredible.
You know you love it if you came back after a 6-0.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The older you get, the 6-0 is like, goodness gracious, what have I done?
Right. Mollee, when you were a young player, did you just like fall in love with the position and you were just like, I want to be the best I can be at it? Or did you have aspirations to be a pro even as a young person?
Honestly, I just fell in love with it. I mean, I remember going and attending camps for my club, and I would sit there all hours of the day just in case I needed a goalkeeper. I was that type of person. I was just always there. I really liked it. I mean, I'm naturally a perfectionist at heart, so I was like, if I'm going to commit to this act, I'm going to go all in. But I think being from such a small, I mean, Nebraska has grown in such immense strides recently with their soccer, especially in the youth. But I think from where I started, I had never had those aspirations because I didn't know they existed. And so I think the doors have opened for me. And then I was able to see a lot more, see those opportunities, and really have those aspirations. But I think from the start, I just wanted to be the best that I could be in the situation that I was in.
What did your training regimen look like when you were a young player?
I would go, I think about 3 days a week and train with my club team. And then I had 2 days a week where I would do goalkeeper training that the club provided. And then I would always do 1 day a week where I'd practice my sister's team. And I just committed to it. I was just all in. So yeah, we didn't have the best facilities. So sometimes I was there until like 11 p.m. Pretty young. So, but yeah, I tried to be at the field as much as I possibly could.
What I love about this is I think that a lot of people can resonate with your story. And I think a lot of people can feel like, wow, I'm not alone in this because, yeah, there's hotbeds for soccer, right? But I think that Nebraska at the time, I don't know a lot about Nebraska. I'll be honest. Sorry, Nebraska. But at the time, it didn't sound like it was a hotbed. And I feel similarly, like with my own experience, like at the time, I was just kind of like scrapping to try to find more soccer, more soccer, more soccer. And I think that we probably have a lot of listeners, whether they're from our area and they can't get to like certain clubs or certain trainings or to TKI, like you're trying to find things and make it work. And a lot of people who just love the position and just love the game, or maybe you're a parent of a kid who just loves the game like that. Like there's ways out there to make it work, even if you don't necessarily feel like you have the means to drive 5 hours to the top tier club team in your state, or you're not able to go to these like giant, massive ECNL GA showcases to get recruited, right? Like, I think that it's a good reminder that no matter where you come from or what the soccer dynamics look like there's a way to achieve your dream, even if you don't necessarily know what your full dream is. Like, I love that about you, and I love that about your story is you're like, I just wanted to be the best I could be for where I was at currently. Like, you didn't have these pro aspirations because you just weren't sure they were out there. You didn't know they existed, but you were still just kind of chasing this dream, which I absolutely love. So all that to say, if you had to give advice to maybe a young athlete who is in your circumstance, what would that be? What would that advice look like?
I think for me, the best part was that I would go to some things and I'd be really uncomfortable. And I just knew that I needed to do it and I needed to push through, because at the end of the day, the more that you put yourself out in uncomfortable situations, the less you'll feel uncomfortable in, your regular circumstances. And so for me, just getting that experience, that varied, unique. I mean, I had such a quick rotation of goalkeeper coaches through my club, but as long as I maintained that consistency of showing up every day, for me, that's all that mattered. And yeah, I was maybe not getting the best coaching, the best, level of play, but the experience is all that mattered at the end of the day. And I was able to push through and kind of teach myself and learn and grow in those unique ways that I wouldn't change at all if I were to go back and do it again.
I think one of the biggest and most important things, obviously, at the Keeper Institute is that we help goalkeepers reveal who they are and refine their character through sport, right? Mm-hmm. And becoming the best goalkeeper you can be is important, but ultimately becoming the best human you can be is way more important, because that's something that lasts with you for your lifetime. Mm-hmm. And also, if you put more attention to your character, it's simultaneously going to make you a better goalkeeper. And you can insert any positive character trait, and if you're more of that more often, you're going to be ultimately a better goalkeeper. When you look back on that, you might not have consciously known that as a young player, but can you identify maybe one or two character traits that you were like, yes, that character trait made me the goalkeeper and person that I am today?
I think resilience obviously is a massive one for goalkeeping. I think that pushing through, there was moments where I would be embarrassed on the field and I was just like, well, I've just got to keep pushing, and I've just got to, keep playing because they're going to need me eventually again. And I think for me, I am just extremely bubbly person. And so trying to translate that onto the field and trying to, figure out how I can showcase my personality. And so I think that kind of, I don't know how to describe that into a singular personality trait, but I think that that's just a way of, characterizing yourself. At the end of the day, we're all different, we're all unique. And so for me, it was like, how can I bring a smile to everybody's day time and time again? And I think, yeah, it's not a goalkeeper specific trait, but it's going to make an impact to everybody around you, and it's going to build each other up.
I just want to connect the dots there for a second, because in my head, the more you like people, the more likable you become, right? And you walk in the door and I say, hey, Ma, how's it going, right? Like, you feel a certain way about me, right? And the more I can extend myself and be kind to other people, the more people are going to be kind to me. How that shows up in a game, the more intentional I am to create those relationships with my backs, the more they're going to put their body on the line to block shots for me, right? The more they're going to be there when I need to be encouraged, when I need to be picked up. And, I have been reflecting back on my playing career and more recently, and there's this player that I played with for only one season. She played with me 1 year, and it was my freshman year, and I had these like big expectations on me, my redshirt freshman year, and I had a couple bad games back to back, and I was feeling down on myself, and she wrote me a card. And I will never forget that card. Like to this day, 25 years later, it's still so meaningful to me. And it had shaped me, right? Like not only did it help me in that moment, but when I reflect back on it, now sometimes when I see people struggling, I write them a card or I send them a note or something. And that buy-in creates stronger relationships, which ultimately makes me better and the person that I'm in that like greater relationship with. So simply by being kind, it does make you a better goalkeeper. It impacts you on a regular basis. It impacts your team and the outcomes as well.
I feel emotional about that. I don't know why, Jill, but it like brought a tear to my eye. Like I felt like I could cry about that experience. I love that.
Yeah, and honestly, like I remember the card to this day, and she wrote a quote in it, and it said, "Sometimes we're taken into deep waters not to drown, but to be cleansed." And I loved that. Like it obviously 25 years. I still remember that card. I still remember that quote. Like, and this kind of like extends back to what we talk about at Camp Mall. Like when you work in camps, like you're here because of someone else. You're here because of someone else's influence, and you also have that ability to, be that person for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely incredible. And it just shows the impact that you can have in such, small little stepping stones that eventually it's going to lead a path that you've created. And I just feel like that's so important to me, especially maintaining my life in the goalkeeper realm. Those relationships, they all matter and they're all so valuable.
Which kind of leads me to my next question for you, Mal. Like, so we talked a good amount about your youth career, and then we talked about like college, and you go to Colorado College, and your coach left, so you transfer and you find your way at LSU, and then we're lucky enough to get a chance to work with you. And I, I kind of kept thinking about like what you were saying about your playing and like your character traits that made you an incredible goalkeeper, but an even better person. And I know for a fact that those are the things that drew Jill to you. Like when watching you, it was like, we gotta invite this goalkeeper to be our intern. And then you're an intern, and I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Like this person is amazing. She's a great goalkeeper, but wow, her personality is just incredible. And I just feel like you're one of those people that walks through the door and I'm like, oh, it makes sense that they're here. I just feel like they're family already. So we talk about that, right? Let's talk a little bit about after your final season, you decide professional playing is something I want. Were you interested in like a certain area? Did you contact certain clubs? Like what was your process like once you realized that playing pro was what you wanted?
Yeah, thank you so much, Tori. That means a lot. And I think for me, I probably didn't fully see the doors into the professional world open up until, I entered the Keeper Institute and I was able to kind of just see exactly how it worked for me. But going to LSU, I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome at first, and I was like, "Whew, I don't know if I can do this." I've come from such a small area, and I'm moving up into the big world. But leaving LSU, I was like, it's not my time to stop. I've already pushed myself all the way here. There's so much still in store for me. But I was going back to the fact that I'm a perfectionist. I think that I had burned myself out so much on trying to be the absolute perfect Mollee Swift that I could be at LSU. And so when I was looking into playing pro, I just knew that I wanted to really switch up my environment. And I was fortunate enough to be in talks with you guys, especially through the process. You were able to witness that. But I, got an agent, really fortunate to have that support from him. And, we were in talks, and this Icelandic opportunity came up, and, I had an Icelandic teammate, so I was like, I know the lay of the land a little bit. It seems like a good opportunity. She confirmed that they're a great club and a good coach, and I was able to have a Zoom call with him. It was almost a little bit of like interrogation. I liked it though. Uh, but no, I got a really good feeling out of that. And then I was fortunate to be training with a few other pros for the Keeper Institute. And, just talking with them, I realized I didn't know if I wanted to go to the NWSL right away, because I just felt like I maybe needed a bit different experience and to kind of get my feet on the ground a little bit better, just leaving LSU and being so, I didn't realize the emotions then, but I was a little bit burnt out. And so, yeah, this opportunity came. I was fortunate to communicate with some NWSL coaches, but at the end of the day, just to better myself as a player with experience and being able to go and continue to play and reset myself a little bit with better intentions, which I think I've gained over the year. I decided to go with the offer to Iceland. Went there, freezing cold, but gotta love it. So yeah.
That's awesome. I think it's going to be really helpful too, as well, because I feel that a lot of people don't necessarily know what are my next steps if I want to play overseas, or what are the next steps post college if I think professional might be the thing for me. And there's a lot of question marks in the air. So hearing people's story is super helpful to goalkeepers that have those aspirations. Now let's talk a little bit about the transition. Obviously, you're stepping foot into a new country, a new culture, a new style of play, a new level, right? You're playing pro. You were just at college. So what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had to take some time. And, just college really takes you out of you. And you realize that after the semester's over and you're like, oh crap, I, really put in way too many hours in a day. But I was able to go there. The first day, I still remember the first day I arrived, I got into this taxi. It was pitch black, drove me 45 minutes to my house that I was staying at. And then I decided that I didn't need any snacks from the airport. So I had absolutely no food on me. Um, and,
Really?
s- and so I ended up having to, it felt like I was having to like actually go and like walk for my food. And I don't think I've ever had that experience ever in my life. So, and I was trudging through, I think it was like a foot of snow and ice. But I found this little cafe and I just sat there, had a really good croissant and a coffee. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Um, and then went back to my apartment and I fell asleep and slept through them coming to pick me up for practice. Um, Luckily, they knocked on the door really hard and I was able to get there. But yeah, practicing was interesting. I was like, wow, I just arrived in a new country and here we are practicing. But immediately I just felt, a sense of relief at how welcoming the team was. Practice level, they're super technical there. So it was a little bit different because I'm so used to, we build a base where we're like, if a forward's going to take a touch this way, they're probably going to do this if they're under pressure and they have those lines of thought. But these girls, they had just a few extra little savvy moments on me. And so I remember I got like chipped one of the first days and I was like, are you serious? Like, I thought I had it all covered. And she goes in and has like a beautiful chip over me. And so it was kind of, I felt like almost I had to relearn the game a little bit, just in a way of maintaining my standards and working with the team, because it wasn't just all physical like I feel like in college sometimes it is with the way the game's played. This one I was truly having to think and process a lot more than I was used to, actually.
That's so I think that's one of the hardest things is transitioning not only levels but also going to a different country where everything is so unfamiliar, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
familiarity breeds more confidence because we know what we're going to face and we know the difficulties that might lie before us, where something that's so unfamiliar is a little bit scary. um, I want to know more about, and it could be any level, whether it's a pro level, college level. You're human, and so are our listeners. And our listeners right now are trying to help develop themselves, and they are wanting to get insight from you because you're somebody that they aspire to be. And so you're normal, you're human, they're normal, they're human. They make mistakes, they have hard times, you make mistakes, you have hard times. So do Tori and I on a daily basis. But can you describe some of those like more difficult challenges, specifically what they were, and then how you overcame them? Was it an inner circle? Was it a coach? Was it someone that had influence in you? Was it therapy? Was it yourself? What were some of the answers that you could provide, some solutions you could provide to our audience?
Yeah. I think the biggest one for me was my coach brought me in and he actually told me, he's like, I love the style that you play. You 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 play so aggressively that you're going to make mistakes playing out of the back, but we want that. We want you to go in. So having that support and that confidence from him was so beneficial for me. And I think that initially kind of cleared the apprehensiveness I had of the style that I needed to play. But then when I was actually playing, I struggled a little bit with communication, recognizing, because the other teams, they would press us in a certain manner that I felt like it was a little bit more, it wasn't just them running at us. It was them waiting and setting up a pocket that they wanted me to play into, and then they would swarm it. So it was kind of, how are we going to solve this? It was a lot of talks with my defensive line, a lot of communication on, we were kind of setting, it almost felt like, how basketball, it incorporates some set plays. I felt like we were doing that just to help prevent ourselves from getting in a pickle sometimes. And I thought that was really, really immensely helpful from my coach and from my defensive line and their trust in me. In terms of goalkeeping and defending the space, I would go out a lot of times thinking that I could, have a 1v1 situation and prevent it. And they always had a runner on the back post that they would just pass a ball right across and play in. And so weirdly enough, the reason I kind of fixed that problem for myself is I got injured and I couldn't run out as much. But it actually helped me recognize, where I could hold my space and still be a preventative goalkeeper, but at a little bit more stable area. I think what I was doing was, the mindset was there, it was correct, but the timing was either very inaccurate or I didn't recognize, that it wasn't just a 1v1, it was a 2v1 with a one defender. So I had to be a little bit more conscious of recognizing what space I was in and kind of being a little bit more preventative just because they were so technical.
Was that difficult to transition to different asks and different strategies than maybe you saw at the college level?
I think it was but also, transitioning there, it was expected of me to, analyze the game, study that. I feel like college, they do a lot of that for me, and then they would show me, hey, this play, you could maybe do this. So for me, it was going out and finding those clips on my own, working through what I could be doing better. It was challenging at first because I couldn't figure out why it was happening. And I was really fortunate, to have a goalkeeper coach in our club. He ended up taking over our team halfway through the season, and he kind of showed me the things that I was missing. I was having gaps in my knowledge, and I couldn't really figure out what was going on. And he informed me like, hey, you do this in a certain moment, and it really showed me just exactly what I was, kind of those gaps I was having. I know a specific example was in a 1v1 situation where a forward was running out at me, I would hold my line a little too high. And so then she would have a few more options than I was giving her. And so then, and I made her decision easy. And he told me, hey, let's, track back to your six, hold that line a little bit, make her show you something that she's giving. And then from there, that's when you make your decision. And he showed me it 1 week in practice, and that game right after, I had an exact moment. I was just like, it was a moment of clarity for me. It's like, wow. And I feel like I needed that. At the Keeper Institute, we always have lines of communication of decision making, but for me, it was a little bit more just solely based on my technical, my ability and that stuff. And so those decision making questions that I was having daily, I kind of had to work through on my own. And so that was just a big factor for me. And it was nice to have a goalkeeper coach, but I think also on my own, learning how to analyze film, learning what I wanted to look for in my own play, that was definitely a big adjustment.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's a harder adjustment to have to make. And I think that that's something that could be related back to any of our youth listeners as well, because I would imagine that like a lot of the clubs, they might do team film, but they're probably not doing individual film with their goalkeepers on a consistent basis, if ever. So like learning how to analyze your own film aside from just looking at your saves is super important and just another way to help you develop and grow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mal, that is all I have for questions. Well, okay, that's kind of a lie because I am going to make you end with one, but I want you to give your best advice that you might have for anyone who's in their goalkeeping journey, whether it be a youth player, a college player, someone who's aspiring to be pro. Like, what is the best piece of advice maybe that you've received that's helped you or that you just have wisdom on to give to somebody?
Well, best advice I've ever received was my sister told me to never apologize, just do better. But I think that I actually bring that into every day, because it's, don't apologize for being yourself. Don't apologize for what you bring. Don't ever doubt that. And so that's kind of how I've transitioned that into, what I want to live by daily. So at the end of the day, we're going to have down days, we're going to have up days, but find that consistent pattern and work towards it. And I think that that's how you solidify like who you are as a goalkeeper, who you are as a person. And really just, there's no need to ever apologize for being yourself and for what you bring to the table.
Oh, I love that. What great advice from your sister. And I don't know if in that moment she meant it to like give her and shape you like that, but
No, probably not.
if people wanted to reach out to you, Mal, where's the best way to do it? Instagram, email, what do you think?
Probably Instagram. My email is also just my name, no spaces, @gmail.com. So pretty easy. But yeah, I think for sure Instagram. And I'm always looking to support new people. So yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, we love it. You got a great name. We're lucky to have you, and you are just not only an incredible goalkeeper, and we're super excited for wherever your career takes you for however long, but also just that you're part of our TKI family because you are an amazing person, and we're all blessed to get to do life with you.
Thank you guys. I'm so blessed and fortunate to be a part of TKI for sure. I wouldn't imagine it any other way. So yeah.
Mollee, thank you so much for your openness, your willingness, your vulnerability. Just a friendly reminder for people that being vulnerable is actually the greatest sign of strength. And so thank you for your strength. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And I hope that it helps somebody that's listening out there that is from a small town in Nebraska as well, potentially. But just echoing what Tori said, it's great to have really incredible people like yourself part of our community. And also just, I think, a beautiful illustration of you can be a badass goalkeeper and an incredible human at the same time.
Woo!
Thank you guys.
Mic drop. We got to end there. That's it, you guys. We'll catch you later. That's how this ends.